So, an exciting episode of the Violent Money podcast today because we are doing our first episode all about UFC 304, the UFC coming back to the UK, pay-per-view in Manchester. Fingers crossed at the Co-op Live Arena, although who knows what's going to happen with that. But we can hope, I guess. It is, of course, going to be going down the early hours of Sunday morning for the most part, which is a whole talking point by itself. But maybe we'll get to that closer to the card, and we'll do that on an episode where Corley's here because I'm sure he's got a lot of things to say about that one. But we are going to be talking about matchups for this card. We've got a few that are already, I believe, only the one that's officially announced and one that's been pretty much announced, unless the Nathaniel Wood fight has been officially announced. But I might have missed that if it has. But we're going to talk about kind of the obvious ones for this card. Some of the names that we know are probably going to be on there. And then a bit later on, we'll talk about some of the earlier fights on the card, things like that, and pick a couple of matchups that we'd like to see. As I mentioned just before we started recording, I just made a general list to get a rough idea of who I'm going to be trying to match make. And I was like, oh my God, there are so many fighters that I want to be on this card that are not going to be able to be on this card. And that list took away fighters that have fought recently, fighters that have got fights coming up. Like, I didn't even put Jack Shaw onto this list because I wrote this list before the weekend. And then after this weekend, I'm like, well, Jack Shaw's going to be on the card. So now how does that change what I'm going to do? So it was tough. How did you guys find it putting? Because you guys booked more fights for this than I did. And even I was like, oh, God, I don't know which people to leave out or which people to put in. And it was tough.
Yeah, much the same process, I think. Just kind of going down the list of UK fighters, you know, who, especially those with ties to Manchester as well. We talked about one of those off air, which we're going to come to, but that obviously is something that gets way higher ranked guys as well. Obviously, we know Arnold. You know, that fight's pretty much official at this point, but other guys in and around the rankings as well. But the issue I think that comes with this is a pay-per-view card. So is there going to be any kind of pay-per-view draws in this fight? For example, UFC 204, similar situation 100 UFCs ago, the all-nighter card. The co-main event was Gegard Mousasi versus Vitor Belfort. Like most of the other fights had a UK representative in them, but are we going to have something like that on this card? Obviously, we had Gaethje and Fiziev in the last card in London. So, you know, are we considering something like that? I think that's a whole other factor for this.
Yeah, it's one that I didn't put in just because of the.
I haven't either for like the basis of this, but
I feel like the two title fights that will probably be on this kind of removes the need for something like that to make it feel a bit bigger. Like maybe without the, you know, they added those to bring up the kind of general interest from outside of the UK. But I feel like even though the two title fights that we're going to get aren't necessarily like blockbuster title fights, there's two title fights. So I feel like it's unlikely that we'll get that. But I mean, yeah, that could throw everything. And with how many like legitimately like top 15 fights that we could put on this card if we really tried to,
yeah,
you just don't really need it either, right?
That's fair enough, and I think you see that a lot now. Like no matter where the card is taking place, as long as you have a title fight or even two title fights, you can just kind of put whatever you want on the rest of it. You don't need that big marquee name. I suppose with Usman and Edwards, there was a possibility that fight could have been, you know, maybe not the most entertaining, given how the second fight was. You know, it had a great finish. It just wasn't that fun of a fight. So they put Gaethje and Fiziev on there. But I think with this one, if you've got two title fights at the top of it, you can just kind of put UK down on the undercard and it'll sell itself.
Let's talk about those title fights for a minute because it feels pretty obvious what we'll get. The only slight deliberation I have is whether Tom Aspinall will be against Curtis Blades and Cyril Gane, and he's made it pretty clear that if he gets the say, then it's Curtis Blades, although he did also say that he'd already signed the contract and he was waiting on Blades. So I feel like that's maybe the only point of difference there. I'm assuming that you guys both are imagining we get one of those, and Leon versus Bilal seems like the obvious one. Do you imagine that this is a thing that I was talking about with some friends the other day? despite the fact that Tom is the interim champion, will he be the main event? Because usually it would go weight classes. But as the interim champion, does that not mean as much? Does he go below Leon?
I think he
I think he goes.
I think he goes above Leon. I think he goes above Leon because Bilal Muhammad is the opponent. I think the UFC think they're going to be shooting themselves in the foot if they put Bilal Muhammad in a pay-per-view main event. So I think they'll probably put Tom in there. Tom has become very popular, and I think him and Blades probably does more to the casual eye than Edwards versus Muhammad.
I think it devalues Leon if he's not the main event with an interim title. That's no disrespect to Tom, of course. Despite me and Tom have had our run-ins at Cage Warriors, as you know, the door-related incident. But nah, I love Tom. I just think you have to kind of lead with the real title fight.
If I was in the UFC matchmaking room, I'd be saying we have to have Tom be the main event because, first of all, he's going to be the bigger draw in Manchester, right? Like
I don't disagree, by the way.
And when people are in the arena until 5 a.m. and they're already tired, main eventing with a heavyweight title fight, Tom Aspinall known for getting people out of there early. If you're closing with Leon and Bilal, that audience is
You mean you don't want to throw Bilal in there at 5:30 a.m.?
No.
I mean, look, I just saying people are going to be very tired by that point anyway, and suddenly 5 a.m. is going to start to feel a whole lot like 7 a.m. And I think that might be a struggle. However, again, if I'm the person that has to make this call, I'm saying all of these things and then going, yeah, but I'm not the guy that's calling Leon to tell him this. If we're doing this, I am not the guy that is having that conversation with Tim Simpson because he is not going to be happy. And so I feel like it's a tricky one. I feel like it makes sense for Tom to be the main event, but yeah, I would not want to be the guy to inform Leon that he is not headlining that show.
Especially in Manchester as well. It leans to Tom.
Yeah.
I think it's fair, and look, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's going to be sold as a championship doubleheader as kind of two equally important main events. So I don't think it really matters who headlines. Just personally, if I was calling the shots, I'd have Tom on top because the thoughts of having to stay in that arena to go watch a Bilal Muhammad title fight, I think, would really put me off it. But that's just me personally.
The other two fights that we have pretty much confirmed for this card already. We've got a 10 featherweight matchup, Arnold Allen taking on Giga Chikadze. I think that if we hadn't had this fight announced and we were doing this matchmaker episode, probably would have been one of the ones, at least one of us would have said it. But that fight makes a lot of sense. It's a really fun fight as well. We were debating about where it will be on the card, because as we'll get to, there's a lot of big fights that could potentially be all vying for a main card slot. So where this one falls, you would imagine that at the very least, very, very least, it will be a feature prelim, if not a main card opener or something like that. But what a good fight that is. I can't wait for that one. Stoked.
Yeah, really good.
Good fight.
And we kind of talked about this before as well, how, that's a really exciting fight. So that can depend on where you place it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And we also have Nathaniel Wood. His fight has been announced versus Daniel Pineda, which, again, another good fight. Happy to see Nathaniel Wood fight in the UK, as always, because he's had so many of these elude him in the past. So to get a fight confirmed already, booked in nice and early, we know he's going to be on the card. Fingers crossed that everything goes according to plan and we get to see him back in the UK. Just looking forward to it. And yeah, good fight. Happy with that one. So
yeah, there's not much to say about that one. Good fight. Always good to see Nathaniel. Always an exciting fight. Pineda's going to bring it. That's a good one.
Yeah,
very good matchup.
Great addition to the prelims.
So when I mentioned about Arnold Allen potentially, competing for a main card slot, the reason I say that is because the other three names that we'll talk about straight off the bat, who you'd imagine will be on this card, Michael Venom Page, who is going to be on the main card. No way he won't be. Mohamed Mokaev, who you'd imagine will be in a title eliminator, so you'd imagine that'll be on the main card, and then Paddy Pimblett, there's no way that he isn't on the main card. So that kind of makes me think that maybe Arnold will be the featured prelim, which seems crazy to say. But again, we're playing fantasy matchmaker here. I'm trying to stack the main card with as many big fights as possible. So maybe it has to be that way. I'll throw it to you, Steve. Where do you want to go with those three names first?
I'll take the obvious one out of there first. I think Paddy Pimblett, Bobby Green has to happen. I've been loving the build up, loving the kind of hype that Bobby's been putting out there to try and get this fight, and I think it's a fight that makes a lot of sense. It's a fascinating style matchup for Paddy as well, and these guys are going to sell the hell out of that fight.
Yeah, Jake, did you pick a matchup for Paddy?
I did not, but I would have to. It's either Bobby Green or Drew Dober. I think it's either of those. I know. No, yeah, Frivola has a fight booked at the minute, so not him. So yeah, I would say Green, especially since he's called out for that fight. And as Steve said, I think it's a really intriguing style matchup because Paddy might be in trouble. Bobby Green has some seriously slick boxing, and if he gets past Bobby Green, it's time to actually look at Paddy as a legitimate lightweight contender because he'd be beating his first top 15 opponent. He beat his first former champion in his last fight, albeit the ghost of Tony Ferguson, and now he'd be taking on his first ranked opponent. So, yeah, I think that's a very solid matchup.
And again, you're still kind of looking at the whole Bobby Green. He's in the tail end of his career, so it's another kind of older veteran name for Paddy as well.
Yeah, I put,
and obviously that's not
well.
We don't want that the whole time, but at this stage of the career, or at this stage for Paddy, when you're trying to kind of build him up, these are the guys you want him against.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Green has like the veteran status, but we're not talking about this fight in the same way that we would be the Tony Ferguson fight, right? Like Bobby Green is still beating good guys.
Like Bobby Green, there's still a bit there, as we saw in that last fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it makes.
I feel like Bobby Green has been relevant for a little while. Like I know he stepped up; it was a short notice thing, but he fought Islam. He fought. Who has he been fighting? Drew Dober, Jalen Turner, Tony Ferguson. When Tony Ferguson was a little bit more relevant. And fighting Jim Miller on UFC 300. Like the company still values him in a way where they're not just wheeling him out as an attraction. Like they want to have him in the rankings, and they think that he's good enough for that. So if they think he's maybe on the slide a little bit, but still good enough to be in the rankings, I think it's perfect matchmaking to fight for Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah, and it would have been easy to say after that Jalen Turner fight that the guy's done, but I mean, we saw how good he looked at 300. Right, there's still a lot there. There's still a lot of gas in the tank with Bobby Green.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure. I'll move on to talk about Mohammed Mokaev, who we spoke about a little bit before hitting record, because I was a bit conflicted with this one because I think it's a no-brainer, obviously, that Mokaev's going to be on this card with him being from the north of England or growing up there, rather. Like, he's going to want to be on this card. It makes a lot of sense. My only problem is I want to see him fight 5 rounds against some of these guys. Like the win over Alex Perez, like Steve said before we started recording, has aged pretty well in the last month, which is crazy. But at the same time, you're thinking he's going to need one more, and you're looking at the very, very top names in this division. I want to see that's the one thing that we don't necessarily know about Mokaev, is how well his style goes over 5 rounds. That's what I want to see, but it seems inevitable that he'll be on this card. I feel like the obvious fight is Brandon Royval. That's probably the one that is the title eliminator that makes the most sense. People don't necessarily want to see Royval go straight back into a title shot with Pantoja again. So he did get the win over Moreno. You probably need another win over a top contender or even another 2 to get that third fight with Pantoja after losing the first 2. It's tough sell. So beating a guy like Mokaev makes a lot of sense for him as well. I'd rather see that one over 5 rounds. And for that reason, I think maybe I'm just trying to put off Mokaev's trajectory because I want to see him headline and fight 5 rounds. But I went with Kai Kara France instead. I just think
that's the name I've got down here too.
I just think it's a better fight over 5 rounds. Over 3 rounds. Sorry, Royval. We saw in the Pantoja fight that whilst I felt like he could have stepped on the gas a little bit earlier. His style is very effective over 5 rounds. It plays into his output, and I'd rather see Mokaev and Royval over 5 rounds. The problem with that is there's no contenders at flyweight. So if Mokaev beats Kai Kara-France, we're not getting the Royval fight. So I realize I'm just completely missing out Royval here. But yeah, I don't know. That fight interests me more of a 3 rounds, I think.
Yeah, I'm good for a bit of a break from Royval for a little bit after his last couple of title fights. We're not going to talk about 301, but I did not need to see that guy hanging out in the front row during Pantoja and Herzog, which he was. Yeah, I'm good with some other challenges, and I mean, if he beats Mokaev, then you're kind of stuck because he's lost twice to Pantoja. So that's why I like the Kai matchup. Obviously, Kai, he's on a bit of a skid. He's lost 2 in a row. People are going to argue that Albazi won, but yeah, Albazi is another option. He's someone with ties to the UK as well. So
that's what I had down.
Yeah.
But I don't know what his situation is with injury at the minute, and I think
he's out.
Yeah, like if he comes back, it could be on the Abu Dhabi show, maybe against Royval, something in that vein. But I put down Albazi versus Mokaev, and I have it as my featured prelim, even though it's a title eliminator.
Hey, the flyweight division has no rules. They can open the card if they want.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone Kai, but yeah, I think there's a lot of picks. There's a lot of options.
Yeah. Jake, did you put a matchup down for MVP?
I said Wonder Boy, and I think that is the most obvious choice. There's a lot of options. You can go with nearly anyone at welterweight, besides maybe the top 5. I think they're kind of booked up with each other. But yeah, you could really go with anyone. I went with Wonder Boy because it's the fight that I think everyone wants to see. But you could go nearly anyone really. Did anyone else put Wonder Boy?
No,
I didn't.
Shit.
I just don't think that's going to be an exciting fight.
No, but I would feel like I'm missing out if I don't see that fight. It's the same way that I needed to see Darren Till fight Wonder Boy. It wasn't great, but I watched it. I can say I watched it.
You didn't learn from that one and be like, maybe that's not.
I'm wearing my Darren Till and Wonder Boy shirt right now. Yeah, I don't know.
Not a great fight.
I've got an MVP Logan Storley poster somewhere. So if we're talking about
my god, that fight stunk. No, I think MVP and Wonder Boy wouldn't be that bad. I don't think it would be that bad. I think MVP's debut.
I think it'd be better than the Till fight.
Oh, it'd be better than the Darren Till fight, yeah. I think MVP's debut was overall pretty fun, a little bit tepid in spots, but I don't think that was down to him. I actually think that was down to Kevin Holland, which is weird to say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Wonder Boy still has enough in the tank to have a couple of fun fights. So I'm actually going to put that down as a good fight that I want to see. Because I have a couple on here that are going to be stinkers. But they have to be made.
I've gone for a different name. I've gone for the name that you can just call on for anyone around this area of the rankings. I'm calling the Jeff Neal klaxon. Jeff Neal, come to Manchester, fight MVP.
Interesting.
He's a couple spots above MVP in the rankings. It makes sense.
Yeah.
He's lost a couple, so he's gonna realistically be fighting down at this point. I think it's the fight that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought about Jeff Neal, and then I was like, I don't know if I can do this to him twice in a row and be like, you had fun with Ian Gary, here's MVP. Have fun chasing this guy around the cage instead. And I was like, I don't know if I can't do it to him, man. I don't want to be the guy to make that call.
I mean, it's a different style, but Shavkat, Gary, and MVP is a rough 3 in a row.
Yeah, that is tough. I went higher than that because I feel like MVP is gonna probably have one more fight, and if he wins that, I think he'll get a title shot, especially if Leon is still the champion. So I went with Gilbert Burns, who is number 6 ranked.
I see that.
If he hadn't have been stopped by Jack Della in the last fight, I wouldn't have said that this will be on the cards, because I feel like Gilbert Burns, when you look at the top 10, Gilbert Burns is not the easiest fight for MVP in that top 10. He of course had that fight against Wonderboy, which was a pretty poor fight, where he was diving for takedowns a lot of the time, and it just wasn't good. But I feel like the thing with, whilst it might not be the best matchup if you're trying to get MVP to a title shot, if you beat Gilbert Burns, you can be like, look at all these people Gilbert Burns has fought. He's a former title contender. He has all these incredible fights. Like, you can really sell an MVP title shot if he beats Gilbert Burns.
And it proves the point that he can kind of beat a high level UFC level grappler as well, right?
Yeah.
He obviously hasn't faced a grappler in the UFC. Yeah, he obviously struggled with Logan Storley, like we just mentioned in Bellator. But I still think MVP won that fight. But yeah, I mean, that's another just feather in his cap when it comes to trying to push for the title shot, isn't it? He beat a legit, really high level grappler, which is, I mean, it's not what you think of when you think of MVP, obviously.
No, and I think it'll be a fun fight, because Burns is, a lot of the time, he is willing to go in and strike with the guys he probably shouldn't strike with. If MVP can beat him, it says a lot about his level of talent. Obviously, there's a lot of doubt about him coming into the UFC. I thought he was going to get squashed by Kevin Holland. How wrong I was. So if he can come out and, you know, prove people wrong again by beating Gilbert Burns, who's one of the best fighters in the division, skill for skill, I think the case can be made for a title shot then and there.
Are we gonna, because we're gonna put this into a combined card? I guess it depends on where you want to go, because I think realistically, Jeff Neal is probably more likely. But in terms of, like, hey, again, throwing just a crazy main card together, then Gilbert Burns makes more sense in terms of being, just outside the top 5. But, whether Gilbert Burns is going to be with, I mean, Gilbert Burns is a very game fighter. Like, when you said about the guy that people call because he's always ready to go, like, Gilbert Burns is that as well, right? Which is why I thought you were going to say Gilbert. So I don't know. I'll leave that one up to you guys. Where do you want to go with Jeff Neal, or do you want to go Gilbert Burns?
I think Wonderboy is best out too, to be honest.
Yeah, Wonderboy too. Yeah, very, very true.
I thought Steve was going to say Neil Magny when he was talking about the guy who you have to beat when you're on the way up.
I did realize when I was saying that, like, it kind of sounds like I'm describing Neil Magny as well. I did kind of.
Yeah,
Ian Gary.
If you were going to suggest Neil Magny versus MVP, which would definitely be on the main card, maybe the featured prelim or the featured fight on the main card, and it was Neil Magny at 4:00 in the morning.
Oh nah, I'm not gonna do that. I think MVP is past Neil Magny on the rankings now anyway.
You can't beat Kevin Holland and then fight Neil Magny.
Yeah.
No offense to Neil Magny, but it's just not. That doesn't make any sense for MVP. And also, the fight would not be a good watch. I feel like those two styles, not fun. So I'm glad that we can just avoid that. I think maybe we go Wonderboy. Maybe we go Wonderboy. I feel like that's a good in between of, like, I mean, he's only ranked one spot higher than Jeff Neal, but I feel like in terms of name value, getting a win over Wonderboy is going to mean a lot more to fans.
Of the three, I think he's the biggest name. Maybe Burns, but I still think Wonderboy is the biggest name of the three.
Yeah. All right.
And if we're like doing this fantasy booking pay per view, I think that works.
Yeah. All right. So I asked you guys to pick 2 fighters that you both want to see. Well, individually you want to see on this card, and to come up with some matchups. I know that you guys put together a bunch more matchups, so we'll get to the ones that we didn't end up making onto the card at the end. But Steve, give us one of your picks to feature on the rest of the card.
There's one fight I've got here that I love, but I feel like it's a guy that you would pick, Kyle.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, I'm interested.
It's for Modestas Bukauskas.
Okay. I have got a fight for him, but that's fine.
You can take one.
I didn't. Now I feel bad.
It's fine. We can compare the 2 matchups. It's still
okay. Sure. Okay, I'll take Modi. I just want to double check the guy's ranking. Well, he's not ranked, but I want to see what he's kind of coming off to, because I made these picks several days ago, and I was like, "Wow, that's a great fight." But now I just want to check
I
it.
did
Like,
so many of those, and then realized that a bunch of them were already booked for fights I didn't know were happening.
I just want to like check that it makes sense. It's fine. Yeah, Modestas Bukauskas versus Ion Cutelaba.
Interesting.
Perfect.
I would like to see how the usually calm Modestas Bukauskas can deal with the craziness that that Ian's gonna bring. I think Will Curry would have some fun with it, but I think I would like to see how Molly kind of deals with that. You can take that matchup to him on Thursday as well, Kyle, and see what he says.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would try and get odds on Will also painting himself green for the weigh-in.
This is the chaos. This is the chaos we're bringing to UFC 304. It's gonna be 3 a.m. It's gonna be probably 2 a.m. when this fight happens. Need something to wake the people up. Come on. Who's gonna do that better than Ion Cutelaba?
Yeah, he's mental. I love it. It's great fighter. Not great fighter. Entertaining fighter. Give him that.
I mean, he's like, I feel like they're probably around the same.
They are
in the
roughly
rankings.
around the same.
Fuck if I know, but
I think Modestas might be slightly higher.
That's the thing. Yeah, and Ion, he's coming off a loss to Philippe Lins, which isn't great.
Oh, he lost that fight, didn't he? I thought he won that one. That wasn't even that long
Like
ago.
we said, it was a split.
Yeah. Yes, I remember.
Oh no,
that fight.
Ignore that.
Was it? Oh, never mind.
Yeah. But like we said, he's not there to be a good fighter. He's there for chaos.
Yeah, I like it.
I can get on board with that.
I went for what I imagine would be a far more slow and strategic fight. So I've picked it, and now you made the case about throwing some chaos in there with Cutelaba, and I'm kind of for it. I went for Marcin Prachnio, who got a win over Devin Clark in February. I believe he's a couple of spots higher than Modestas in the light heavyweight rankings. Also fought Vitor Petrino. Also lost to Felipe Lins. Is 4-5 in the UFC overall, but the 3 of those losses did come in a row, and they were not. That was not a good run. But it has been better since then. So I felt like that made sense. But to be honest,
how have Marcin Prachnio and Ion Cutelaba not fought each other?
That's crazy.
How has that not happened?
When you said it, that's immediately what I looked at. When you said Cutelaba, that is crazy that they haven't fought each other. Yeah, I think I like your Cutelaba shout more. I think the Prachnio one, a win, probably. I was gonna say it brings.
I think it's a.
I don't know if
Prachnio's higher ranked, maybe.
Yeah, but Cutelaba always brings craziness, so more people are gonna go. I'm gonna tune in to watch this fight than if it was Prachnio. Like.
Yeah, I think in terms of like in terms of actually moving up the division, I would say Prachnio is probably a better shout. But in terms of trying to get people to watch and maybe drum up fan interest, Cutelaba is just always a maniac. So yeah, I would be in favor of that one. But I don't think Prachnio is a bad shout either. I just don't know how I feel about putting him on a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think Cutelaba is the more pay-per-view fight. Obviously, we're looking at prelims, but it's still.
But, yeah.
So, Tapology have got Modestas at 33, Prachnio at 29, and Cutelaba, like, amazingly at 23.
23?
What?
He's higher.
What was his last win?
He beat Tanner Boza last year.
When?
In April.
April.
Fight night.
On the Max Holloway Arnold Allen card.
April last year.
Yeah, not last month.
Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, that's not right. Not even a little bit right. Yeah, no. I don't even know what to say
He's
to that.
higher than like
20.
Antonio Carlos Jr., who's on like a ridiculous run of subs in PFL.
Yeah, that's insane. There's no world in which Cute Lava is the 23rd best light heavyweight in the world, no matter what, whether it's just in the UFC or in MMA in general. Yeah, no. But that's fine. If Bukowskis beats him, then he goes to 23rd in the Tapology light heavyweight rankings, which we're all trying to get into.
All right, I'm gonna throw to Jake for another pick. I've just realized that one of my picks, the opponent has got a fight booked, so I'm having to do this on the fly. So, Jake, pick somebody who isn't booked.
I made this about an hour ago, maybe 2 hours ago, and I picked someone who just fought at the weekend. Now, he did lose, but he didn't take a whole lot of damage, and I think he could turn around, but I do have an alternative just in case he can't. I'm saying Farid Basharat versus Jonathan Martinez, and if Martinez can't make it, Pedro Munoz.
Ooh. Isn't Javid coming off of a loss, rather?
He said Farid.
Farid.
Oh, my apologies. That makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't even consider the Basharats on my list, to be honest.
No, I didn't either.
I mean, when you're looking at the kind of guys in and around the rankings, they're right there. That's a good fight. What did Farid do in his last fight? That seems a bit of a step up.
It does. It seems like a bit of a step, but I mean, he's 15-0. He's very skilled. I think. I think Munoz would be a good opponent. Maybe Munoz more so than Martinez.
I like Munoz.
Yeah. Because Munoz has lost his last two. I want to say Phillips and somebody else. Cheeto, that was it.
Phillips and Cheeto.
So, yeah. I mean, he kept his ranking in the fight against Phillips, which I thought was fair enough. Like, he fought well. But I think this could be a real make or break for him. Throw him in there with Basharat, see if he fucking sinks or swims.
Yeah, I like that. I like that fight.
Basharat or Munoz is 15 in the rankings. So, I mean, you could, I think, get about that. I think that's a good fight.
Yeah, I like that one. All right. My picks do not make sense now. I'll explain. So, of course,
is someone playing the radio, or is someone got a TV on in the background?
I can hear like loads of like feedback.
It could be me because I'm not wearing headphones. It could be you listening to you off my phone.
It's stopped now, so whatever it was.
Oh.
No, it is that. But I
thought there was a TV going on in the background in one of your rooms. I was like, what are we doing here?
I'll explain. Of course, one of my two picks was going to be Christian Leroy Duncan. He called to his card when he won. It made a lot of sense. However, I have tried to match him. I've written down 3 different names for him to fight, only to realize that all 3 of them are booked. So I'm running out.
Just to like kind of step in here, I've got Christian on my list as well. Obviously, I've got 2 guys who are fighting each other. I think he's going to fight the winner of that, or that would be my pick.
This might be one of the fights that I
very possibly,
very possibly. Okay, which matchup were you talking about?
I mean, you go first. This is your pick.
Okay, so the 3 names that I thought would be interesting fights for Christian Leroy Duncan. Originally, I was like, this is quite a big step up in my opinion, but we're playing fantasy matchmaker. This would be an incredible fight to watch. I'm chucking him in there with Roman Kopylov. And I was like, I don't feel great about that one. It's a tough fight, but it'd be a lot of fun whilst it lasted. He is booked. I had the same opinion of Edmund Shabazian, who is also booked. And my most recent mess up on this was Marc-Andre Barrio, who again I thought was a little bit of a step up considering some of the guys he's fought in the UFC. Doesn't have the best record in the UFC, but fought some tough guys. However, he is booked for 303 against Joe Pyfer. So I'm right. It's been a struggle. The middleweight division is a mess, and somebody get my boy Christian Lee-Rodon in a fight.
May I suggest it's not necessarily a step up, but I think it would be a really fun fight. Punahele Soriano.
That's a very fun fight. I mean, I've gone more conservative than both of you guys. I've gone for the winner of Abus Magomedov versus Wally Alves.
When is that happening?
It's like 2 weeks. May 18th.
May 18th. Okay. Yeah, sure. Why not?
I mean, it sounds boring compared to Edmund Shabazian and Punahele Soriano, but
yeah, I don't know what the situation with Soriano is. He might actually be booked, or he might be injured or something because I haven't heard anything about him in a while. But it's the first one that came to my head.
Have a look.
And again, it's not as much of a step up in competition as
Puna
is fighting
Miguel Baeza next month.
Oh fuck. All right. That's all right. We can work this out. Bruno Ferreira.
We'll check.
Yeah. I feel like if he was going to be fighting, he would have fought on 301. So
yeah,
if he's free, put him in there.
Is fighting Dustin Stoltz first next month.
For fuck's sake!
On the same card as Puna. Same card.
I'm starting to think I might have looked at that card earlier and got some ideas.
I mean,
no, there's a fight. Come on.
There is on Ranking MMA. There is a guy right next to CLD on their rankings who is a good name for CLD to have on his record, but it's just not a fight that I'm like yes. But maybe it can happen. He does currently have a grappling match booked for about 3 weeks from now, so maybe that would have to leave the schedule.
Do you want him to fight Renato Moicano? Because I think that's unfair.
I'm just trying to get him a fight. You know, there's nobody else left. Pay Renato what he wants. No, Eric Anders.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
But the problem is, if we're playing fantasy matchmaker, am I just trying to get CLD on the card? Like, is there no other motivation here? You know, no other intent. Because if there isn't, then sure, do it. And it's a good name for CLD to go in there with. But it's just.
I don't hate it.
Literally the three.
I don't know if he's going to be back. I don't know if he's going to be back because he had his. I'll throw one out here. I don't know if he's going to be back because he got his eyes raked out by Chris Weidman, but Bruno Silva. I think that'd be a fun fight. If he has vision, then I'd say throw him in there.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll circle that round.
Yeah. Cool.
I'll put CLD down on the list, but when we eventually do your guys' list of all the fights that you put together, we can come back to that one.
Yeah.
See whether it still deserves its spot. Steve hits with another pick.
I mean, we've got Paddy Pimblett on the main card. Molly McCann's not going to be too far behind.
That's right.
There's a few options, obviously. What was that, Jake?
I was just saying that's a good idea, and I did not have that down, so I gave her a fight just now.
Okay. Just looking generally, people around her in the rankings. I settled on Sam Hughes. I mean, she's someone who's gonna come and strike with Molly. That's what Molly wants. That just seems like a good fight to me. I mean, there's not much
I'm
more
just
to it than that,
realising.
other than, you know, we're going to get Molly on the card in Manchester, close to Liverpool. Obviously, her entrance is going to be a big deal. She's a big name. She's more than likely is going to be on this card, and not really been talked about. So I think this is a fine fight for her to have.
I wrote down
Oh,
Miranda Maverick, meaning to write down Gillian Robertson, and I don't know why I confused them. I think they're both 15th in the rankings. One a flyweight, one a strawweight. Yeah, that tripped me up for whatever reason. Yeah, if they want to push her back into the rankings, maybe to do a strawweight.
I think both of those would be very bad matchups for Molly McCann.
Yes,
Yeah.
but Maverick more so, I would say. Robertson
the
is a little bit hit and
Robertson-
miss at times.
The good thing with the Robertson one is the narrative, right? Where she beat her on Molly's UFC debut in Liverpool. So then coming back could be interesting. I went this is probably the one where I've reached the most in trying to put together a fight that I just think would be a fun fight to watch, rather than it making sense. I wrote this on Friday. I had Karolina Kowalkiewicz and then realized she was fighting the very next day. So removed her from that. And I looked through.
That fight should happen though.
Yeah, that would be a fun one.
Definitely.
I looked through and I was like, what's the fight that I just think would be a lot of fun, even though it makes no sense given their current runs in the UFC. But I put Loma Lookboonmee.
Ooh,
Okay.
I like that.
I mean,
Not mad at it.
it would be a really
No.
fun fight. The problem is Wally is coming off of that submission win, but before then, a couple of losses, and Loma's on a pretty decent win streak right now. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. But I think it would be of the fights you're reaching, but reasonably make for Molly. That would be the one I would want to see the most.
Yeah, I mean, if you factor in the fact that Lookboonmee is like on a good run and McCann is quite popular, it about evens out at each other, even if her recent run of form hasn't been amazing.
It's very true. We did literally see Aaron Blanchfield versus Molly McCann, so it doesn't always have to make sense.
That's ridiculous.
No, I think Loma's actually a fantastic fight. I would
go with Loma over Sam Hughes. So I'm good going with Loma.
All right, we will add that on there. Jake, another fight.
See, I have a couple of good fights here, but I know we'll get around to them eventually. So I'm going to put him on the card because he should be on the card. I'm putting in Caelan Loughran because we're doing an Irish one. Fuck England. And he's fighting Cameron Simon because why not? Simon had a lot of potential, lost his last fight, lost his last two fights actually, I think. One to Christian Rodriguez and one to Peyton Talbot. So I think Loughran coming off of a win, Simon coming off of a loss, I think that's a pretty good fight. I know Loughran said he has an offer and he has a fight. He hasn't said who it is yet. I would put my money on that's who it is.
Say it was a prospect versus prospect fight.
Yeah, so that's where I would say I thought it was going to be Peyton. I thought Peyton Talbot might have been kind of in the mix, but he has a fight booked for 303 as of today. Who's he fighting?
Today, yeah. I forgot. I will find it.
Yeah, somebody quite unremarkable, if I do remember. Like it's kind of a step down in competition.
Yeah, Peyton Talbot's the man though.
You know, he's so fucking good.
Peyton Talbot is fighting Yanis Gamuri.
Yeah, that was it. He should be fighting Yanis Gamuri.
I can't say I know who that person is. I'm going to be honest.
I believe.
Have we seen him fight?
He fought Morgan. He fought Morgan Charrier.
I
think.
The guy that didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't look bad in that fight, but
no. He isn't the guy. He isn't the guy that fought Morgan. He's the guy that was supposed to fight Loughran, and then
he fought William. He fought William Gomez, didn't
he? William Gomez.
Yeah.
Body kick.
Yeah, it was one. It was one or the other. I remember. I remember who was fighting that night, but I don't remember who fought who because they fucking changed it so many times.
So confusing. Yeah. All right, yeah,
Yeah,
great fight.
I'm going to say Lachlan and Simon, but I think as long as you have Lachlan on there, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think that's.
I
good
do
one.
have I
just-
have one more Irish fighter on here, and it also involves a British fighter, but I think we'll circle back to that.
We can circle that. I've got another Irish fighter on here too. I've actually got two Irish fighters fighting each other. So I definitely want to bring that up.
I think maybe we'll go to your guys' list because my other matchup, whilst I originally had Mo and CLB as the two that I tried to pick fights for, it's a tough one, right? I think that Mick Parkin deserves a spot on this card so badly
Yes.
for the win streak that he is on. And to fight up north on the same card as Tom would be fantastic. However, there's just not any fights in and around Mick Parkin that really get me excited.
Yeah, that's the same conclusion I came to as well.
I also came to that conclusion, but I said fuck it, and I gave him a top 15 opponent. Mick Parkin, congratulations, you're fighting Marcos Rogério de Lima.
That is also who I gave him.
Right? I don't think I put him on my list. So.
It makes sense, I think. Like, it's a good step up for Mick. He's the top 15 ranked guy. Fought some decent names in the division. He's coming off of a win as well. Obviously, Mick's on a good run. So, I think it makes sense. Like, it's a fight that I would legitimately put together. It's just like I'm not dying for it to be on this card, but I do think Mick Parkin should be on this card. It's just that there aren't that many spots on this card. We got a lot of fighters to pick. So,
as far as crappy heavyweights go, De Lima is not the worst. He really isn't. So that actually wouldn't be a bad fight either. I don't think. I think that might actually end up being okay.
I don't mind De Lima in the grand scheme of things. He's
fine. The only other person that I put down here who's not ranked as a fight for Parkin was Shamil Ghaziyev, because he was ranked for a little while, and then he fell out, and then he fought Rosenstrike and made a show of himself. So that's the other one I have down, but I would say De Lima.
Yeah, that works. That works for me. The problem with this is this is the final card that we will go with unless we end up switching any matchups out. The problem is we've got our main card, right? Let's imagine that the Arnold Allen and Giga fight is going to be the featured prelim. Then you have got 4 fights out of these 8 that are going to have to go. 3 to make up the rest of the prelims, and then potentially 4 fight pass prelims. And I would say maybe the heavyweight one, even though it's a top 15, you could probably put that on early. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Mo and Kutalaba will be a good tone setter, even though it would be fun to put that on later on to wake the crowd up a little bit. That's a good one to get people in early, because that fight is going to be crazy. And then you're like, well, Jalen Locker and Cameron Simon do not deserve to be on the fight pass prelims. Molly McCann is not going to be. Neither is Christian Leroy Duncan versus Eric Anders. Neither is Pedro Munoz. Neither is Nathaniel Wood. Like, that's a tough order.
Yeah. It is tough. And I feel like we haven't made any outrageously good matchups here. Like, we're not throwing people in fucking top 5 fights on the prelims, right? These are just good fights. Do I think we're going to see a lot of them? No, unfortunately. I only have 2 fights left. No, I don't have 3. I think the 3 that I put together were probably more likely to end up seeing on the card, which is fine. They're not bad fights. But the ones I have left are, and I know he just fought and he got knocked out, but let's presume he comes back, Paul Craig versus Chris Weidman.
What?
Why not? Paul Craig versus Chris Weidman. Chris Duncan versus Kiefer Crosby at welterweight, because they've been mouthing at each other.
I knew put that one in.
Yeah.
Feels like that should happen.
And Jai Herbert versus Charlie Campbell.
Yeah, I'd
all
say
good
that
fights.
you said that they all seem like more likely to happen. I don't think we're getting Paul Craig versus Chris Weidman. I mean, if we get it,
No, okay, maybe not.
But
Maybe not, but the other two are fine.
Yeah, I think we are more likely to see Mick Parkin step in as a short notice replacement against Tom Aspinall than we are Paul Craig versus Chris Weidman.
What would be the problem with Craig versus Weidman, other than the fact Paul Craig was brutally knocked out at the weekend? Let's say he gets over it, right? He's back. He's back in action. It's hard to keep a good man down. As a fight, like, let's say it wasn't on 3 or 4. Let's say it was, I don't know, on the Madison Square Garden show at the end of the year, because Weidman is from New York. I don't think that's outrageous matchmaking.
I think Weidman will be on
because Weidman has.
I think
Weidman is seriously on the slide.
But,
I mean,
I don't think it's a bad fight.
I don't really want to see Chris Weidman get hit in the face anymore. It's a great matchup.
Yeah, I don't want to see Paul Craig get hit in the face anymore. It's a good matchup.
It's a good job that Chris Weidman, that you don't want to see him get kicked in the body. He's going to get kicked in the body an awful lot, and then maybe submitted. That is how the fight will go. So, I'm into.
How do you feel about seeing? How do you feel about seeing Paul Craig lose the vision in both of his eyes? That's also something you need to consider in that one. So, look, maybe it's optimistic thinking to think that Paul Craig will be back at 3 or 4, but yeah, why not? We'll put him in some fucking. We'll put headgear on him, and he'll be good to go.
All right.
Okay. I've got a couple more fights if you want me to kind of rattle through those.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm about to piss Jake off. I don't know what these two fighters' relationship is. I don't know if they're trained together. Danny McCormack versus Sean O'Bannon.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. When you said you had two Irish fighters, when you said you had two Irish fighters against each other, I could not work out for the life of me what it was, because I had said Loughran, it's not McGregor, it's not Ian Gary, it's not going to be Kiefer Crosby, unless you mashed up Kiefer Crosby and Rhys McKee, which would be a weird matchup. And there was no other fucking Irish women's fighters I could think of other than Sean O'Bannon. But no, signing Danny McCormack would be
McCormack should be at this point.
I was gonna mention this at the start about how, like, not only are we trying to do this card and not put anyone that, like, or like, you know, when thinking about it, that's either recently fought or even has a fight coming up, because you're like, well, I don't know how it's gonna go. I was like, do we put Cage Warriors Steinees in? And it's like, probably not, because
I mean,
Contender Series is a thing. But then Danny McCormack, I feel like, makes a lot of sense to just sign straight away, right? But I mean, we've seen that happen before where it doesn't happen.
Yeah, obviously it's a pay-per-view. The card's going to be stacked as it is. I don't think there's going to be, like, I don't know. You might get one if George Hardwick is good, then you might. Is George got a fight coming up?
No, not yet. But I think he's planning to fight in Manchester that same weekend.
Oh well, that's not going to work then. Unless he beats someone really quick and then gets a short notice call. Could you imagine?
I don't know if this podcast comes out before my interview with Harry Hardwick, so that might be the first time that people know that. But yeah, that's when he's going to be back.
There's not really.
Actually, I think if it wasn't, you know, this is probably the only UK card we're going to get this year, then there's room for a Vucenic or a Luke Riley maybe. But if we're being honest, they're going to be on.
I think Vucenic would definitely be a good show. I think maybe it's a little bit early for Luke Riley, and I think they want to get him onto a Cage Warriors belt first. But I think Vucenic, like, after his last showing, I think there's been a lot of call to get him to the UFC. It's just I don't even think it's a case of finding an opponent. I think you throw him in there with anyone, really.
Yeah, I think
But I think yeah, if you're looking for names to put on this card, if they want to do kind of like a 15 fight card with a lot of UK talent on it, and they want to sign people, I think Bachang is probably the way to go.
Yeah. A couple more fights. What do we have? Sam Patterson has teased to be on the card. I mean, he looked really good in his last fight in Canada. I mean, he's still bouncing back. He's still really bouncing back from what we saw at the last pay-per-view in London. Really much over him. So I've kind of kept his, level guy to kind of get him a chance to look good in the UK. Rolando Bedoya is a guy.
I think that's fair enough.
I've got Duncan Crosby. You mentioned Jai Herbert there. I've got Jai Herbert versus Nathan Levy. And
yeah.
I don't know about this one because she's fighting this weekend. I've got Veronica on here as well. Veronica can have a quick turnaround. I initially put Priscilla Caguera, but I don't like that matchup the more I look at it. I think Veronica's going to be way higher now.
Yeah. Is Cachoeira still with the UFC?
See, she was on the list. I looked at it a couple of days ago.
Yeah. So I haven't heard anything about her in ages. The last memory I have of Cachoeira is when she tried to blind Gillian Robertson that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's a bad matchup though. I mean, it depends on how Veronica looks this weekend and if she takes a lot of damage. But if she goes out and has a good performance, I think she could be fighting up in that direction because Cachoeira is kind of a name.
Yeah. That's the thing.
With Veronica Hardy is up as we are recording this. So
yeah, just
check that out.
Got the notification 10 minutes ago.
I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch it. Why are you watching this? Go watch the interview.
Yeah. Go listen to Veronica, not us.
Unless you're watching this after she fought, and then stick around, I guess.
Tell us how she did. Should she be on the card? Are we chatting shit?
There's so many people like that where I'm like, they could definitely be on this card. Probably should be. But I just don't know how you fit everyone in. So it's going to be tough.
If you ask Shaky Shore, Jack Shore should be on this card because there was nothing wrong with him, and that doctor was an idiot. No,
I didn't put Jack on my list because I made it before the fight, but I don't hate him being on this card now.
No, if his leg is okay, I would say throw him in there.
Everything is all good. Yeah.
We've missed another one that we haven't even mentioned yet, which I only didn't make a matchup for purely because I had a look and I was like, I just don't know who to put him against. But if we're being real, Oban Elliott should be opening this card. But
yes.
Trying to
I had him written down. I forgot to give him an opponent. That was the problem.
I found one opponent for him, which was is it Hafez, the guy that Dalla Maddalena fought on short notice, but he's already booked.
Yeah.
So all right.
Let's have a look at welterweight.
Could we say Chaos Williams versus Owen Elliott? Fuck it, I'm saying that. Who cares? Chaos Williams was very high for a very short amount of time.
Basil Hafez is fighting Mickey Gall at 302.
He's fighting Mickey Gall.
Yes.
Wow.
Oban versus Mickey Gall would have been
still around.
Yes.
Revenge
Oban
for
and
CM
Mickey
Punk.
Gall.
That would have been the one.
I need that now. I need that in my life now. Oban Elliott versus Mickey Gall.
Oban with the cult personality walkout. We'll just run it back. That would have been phenomenal.
Okay, now looking at it, Oban Elliott versus Chaos Williams might not be the right fight, but I don't know. It's very hard.
How about Johnny Parsons?
I like that fight. He's quite exciting as well.
He is,
and
he had the great.
Instead of going on, and I was going to say instead of going on the CM Punk revenge tour, let's go on the Danny Roberts revenge tour.
Sure.
So he goes and calls out Mike Perry after this.
He goes to bare knuckles to fight Mike Perry. Can
He
you
moves up to
imagine
middleweight.
Can you imagine Oban in bare knuckle?
I reckon he's as hard as a coffin nail, so we get on fine.
Right.
So Owen Elliott versus Michelle Pereira at middleweight as a part of the Danny Roberts Revenge Tour.
Tell him to like guard his head when he's off the ground.
Yeah.
Mm.
Actually,
Is there anyone else that's jumping out?
I take it back. Forget Craig versus Chris Weidman. Craig versus Ihor Peteria.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was. We're not going to talk about 301, but that was pretty bad fight, wasn't it? No gunfight.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. And you know, who cares if Pereira does illegal moves? They're fucking cool.
Fine.
Give him a break.
Fun shouldn't be against the rules.
No, it shouldn't be. Not at all. Not at all. The fact that he managed to do a backflip and kick him in the head or knee him in the head at the same time, that should be extra fucking points for him. That should work in his favor more than anything. Yeah, get him on this card if you can. He'd be fucking cool.
Michelle Pereira, I just decided that he would be like the greatest fighter fighter of all time. What's that guy gonna do in that rule set? Like the run and drop kicks, run and drop kicks, pocket kicks. Let's have it.
That's a good point. So what do we have in terms of the card now?
All right, let me run through the card. Okay.
I'm surprised you haven't tried to get Reese McGee on there. Okay.
Enough said.
I was just going through the list. That's all.
This is a wild card. So we have got opening the show is the main man, the Baltic Gladiator, Modestas Bukauskas, taking on Ion Kutalaba in a nonsense fight that I'm all about. I'm gonna see if I mute Jake if the feedback noise stops.
Yeah,
because when I speak in particular, it's crazy.
That is rough.
There you go. Okay.
Yep. Sorry,
Second
Jake.
fight of the night, you have got Tom Aspinall's teammate Mick Parkin taking on Lima, number 15th ranked heavyweight. Good fight. Makes a lot of sense. I haven't structured this completely, so we might have to switch some things around. But then I have got Caden Loughran taking on Cameron Simon. That is a banger of a fight.
That's a really good fight.
I think it could probably happen. I would probably like to see it a little bit later for Kalen because Cameron Simon's had a little bit more time in the UFC. But if you're gonna build a dream fight, that is definitely, if you ask me what fight do I want to see Kalen have in the next year, that would probably be the one. So why not do it? Why not do it next? Then we will go with Farid Basharat taking on Pedro Munoz in the main event of the Fight Pass prelims. That is another great fight.
That feels like that should be on the TV prelims.
I know. The problem is then you're opening up the prelims with Christian Leroy Duncan versus Eric Anders, aka the people's main event. So, sorry, Pedro Munoz. Fight Pass prelims, it is, my friend. Then you have got how have I structured this? I'm gonna have to actually structure it instead of just reading fight by fight. Otherwise, I'm gonna start to get really confused.
Right. I'm just going over the roster to see if there's any obvious omissions that we've just somehow forgotten. I think we're pretty much. I mean, if Lerone could turn around, he would probably be there. If he, I mean, he could get his legs chopped against Edson Barboza. I love Lerone, but I mean, and I think he's going to win that fight. But I mean, that might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. Okay, so kicking off the main card, the prelims, is the people's main event between Christian Leroy Duncan and Eric Anders. You then have got Nathaniel Wood taking on Daniel Pineda, which is one of the fights we already have announced. Then you have got Molly McCann versus Loma Lukbunmi, potential fight of the night there, I think. And the featured prelim is Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. And then finally, the 5-fight main card. Kicking off the main card is Paddy Pimblett taking on Bobby Green. Then you've got Mohamed Mokaev versus Kai Kara France. Michael Venom Page versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And then, of course, the top 2 fights, Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. And then to wake people up just before they get a train home at 6 a.m. in the morning, Tom Aspinall versus... We didn't actually say for sure whether you guys would rather have Blades or Gan. I feel like Tom wants Blades, so I'm like, do that one then.
Yeah, I've got Blades on my list.
Yeah. All right. That is the full card. Let us know which fights you disagree with, which fighters should have been on this card that we didn't put on this card. I'm sure there's plenty of options we could have alternated and switched around and picked better ones. Even that is just the nature of this. Anything else you guys want to say about the card for UFC 304? Things you guys want to see or whatever before we get out of here?
No, I think it's turned out pretty well. I mean, if this is the other card, if this is the actual card, I'm not going to complain. I mean, yeah, it's fun. Will this be the card? Probably not. But in our hearts, this is the card. Yeah, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it then for the dream card for UFC 304 with some, I say dream card. We did kind of put some limitations on ourselves. We didn't get too crazy straight out of the box, but still tried to put together a good card, and hopefully you guys agree that this wouldn't disappoint, even if it does go on at 3 a.m. in a half functioning co-op arena. We'll catch you very, very soon.